We're kicking off our 2024 Mariners position preview series with a look at one of the best, if not the best, rotations in baseball. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. This is Tidy Gonzalez and Colby Patnett for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn, that's LOCKDON, to get yourself started. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. And we're kicking off our position by position preview of the 2024 Mariners. Today, we're going to zero in on the starting rotation. Tomorrow, we'll focus on the bullpen. And then next week, we'll get into the position players because Colby's going out of town later this week. So let's start here with the rotation, the big three of Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby. What are your expectations for those three guys, Colby?
First, second, and third in Cy Young voting. Anything less is a major disappointment.
I like it, but I'm going to need specifics. Who's one? Who's two? Who's three?
I mean, in actuality, probably Kirby would be my bet of the three.
Yep.
If you're looking for the best value in, Vegas, which we do not endorse, but wink.
Not in the state of Washington.
No, of course not, unless you go to a casino. Gilbert at plus 2,500 is pretty good value. So, but yeah, the three, like you said, there's just not many teams, if any, that can kind of match the Mariners 1 through 3. There are teams that have better pitchers than any of these three, but none of them have two, let alone three, better than this trio. Yeah. So, this is the Mariners' strength. It is in their starting pitching, and it is particularly in the top half of their rotation. You have three guys who all could legitimately win the Cy Young. These are three guys who, could, in theory, all, be a 5-win pitchers, 6-win pitchers. They all have that type of stuff in them. Gilbert and Kirby are still clearly, on this upswing of their careers, and even Luis Castillo. I think he still has the stuff. I think there's still a small tweak he can make, and he could put up another 5-win season, or just a 5-win season for the first time, and kind of have that one last huge breakout before he kind of settles in as he enters his 30s. So this is a group that they throw strikes. They all have nasty stuff. They can get you out multiple different ways, and they give you a shot regardless of who the other team is throwing out there. These three guys will give you a shot to win more nights than not. Good shot to win. And we've seen them all, come up in big moments and pitch really well. We've seen them struggle in big moments too. So they're not quite aces, right? They're not Garrett Cole. They're not Spencer Strider, but they are legitimate at the very worst number twos. And for long stretches of the year, they will pitch like number ones or aces. So there's still some more upside to go get from all three. But the floor is really high. And these are three guys who legitimately, you could put money on them to win the Cy Young Award this year. And there's a decent chance that you're going to get a return on that investment. They're all very good pitchers. And this is kind of what gives the Mariners a chance, regardless of how you feel about the rest of the team, or is just these three guys pitching back to back. You're going to win a lot of series just on that fact alone.
Gilbert was pretty consistent last year, but we did see Castillo and Kirby hit some roadblocks there later on in the season. Was there something that you saw from both of them last year that makes you think that something can be done to help prevent that from happening this year?
It was interesting. Castillo's problem last year was pitching out of the stretch. A lot of things changed when he went to the stretch. And you remember last year was kind of the first year where he didn't get to do his little preset leg kick thing,
Mm.
as that was now considered a balk. So maybe just the fact that he's more comfortable with that will help. But for him, he didn't really have his changeup for most of last year either. So it was four seam, two seam, and slider. And if he didn't have one of those pitches, he was susceptible to it because he was throwing each one of them, 35% of the time ish. So uh, for him, it's just command, and then hopefully he can find the changeup. He threw a couple pretty good looking ones today. Didn't have radar readings on them, so it's a little hard to differentiate sometimes between the two seamer and the changeup on live TV, but
Mm.
looked pretty good today. Kirby, it was kind of weird because we've talked about this in the past. Kirby doesn't have like ungodly stuff, right? Like
Right.
he has to locate, he has to be in the middle of the plate, or he can't be in the middle of the plate. His his big challenge now is we kind of know what teams are going to try and do against him. They're going to try and attack him early because they know he's going to be in the strike zone. And that
Mm.
can work, one of two ways. Either they're going to get a good pitch to hit and they're going to do damage and they'll put up 5, 6, 7 runs on Kirby, or they'll play right into his hands and he'll get through, 8 innings on 82 pitches. And so how does George counteract that? He needs more swing and miss. His stuff has to get better. It really is that simple. And we know that George is a tinkerer. We know that he's going to have probably the best control and command in the game. So if you can just find a few more whiffs on the off speed stuff, then he can kind of get guys into these counts quicker, into these 0-2 counts, and put them away instead of you having these long drawn out at bats, because he throws so many strikes that it's a pretty easy game plan. It's hard to execute, but the game plan is easy. There's not much that's going to surprise you about a George Kirby start. So I think those two guys, it's just small tweaks. I don't think that they need to add another pitch or anything like that. I think it's just about getting a little bit more out of their secondaries when they get into a little bit of trouble.
Beyond those three guys, there's a couple of really high upside arms, and Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. We're going to be talking about those guys and whatever else is behind them in case someone, knock on wood, goes down in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. And as a reminder, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we get back into our Mariners starting pitching preview for the 2024 season, you guys have 3 days left, including today, to get into our giveaway to win some of Colby's stuff. Colby, remind the fine folks what you're giving away. Now, keep in mind, we're recording this on Monday, so we don't know yet if we've reached 11,000 subscribers for the next tier of this giveaway.
Right. So as you guys probably remember, we're doing a tiered giveaway of a lot of my stuff, mostly autograph cards, but today we're going to throw something different into the mix a little bit. But essentially, to enter to win this stuff, all you have to do is you just have to subscribe to this YouTube channel and leave a comment on any video that we posted from last Monday to this Friday, Thursday, right? Technically.
Yeah.
Thursday, 11:59 p.m. You just have to leave a comment and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We will randomly pick one comment and they will get this. We're calling it a Mariners mystery box, but we're kind of showing you guys what's in it as we hit certain numbers, levels in this giveaway. So if for every 100 levels, we add more to the box. What we have in it so far already, Mitch Garver autograph card, dual jersey swatch card, numbered, Jared Kelenic numbered autograph card. I don't know. I can't see the camera when I hold the card up. Randy Wynn autograph card is in there. We have this Harry Ford Bowman Chrome refractor card. We have this Las Montes numbered Bowman Chrome refractor card. We have this lovely 5 out of 5 Prolander Baroa, beautiful card autographed as well. Now, if we get to 11,000, I will be adding this unopened Kyle Seager bobblehead from a few years ago, as well as staying on theme, this Kyle Seager autograph card. So let's say we get to 11,000, those will both get added to the box as well. So we might already be at 11,000, in which case if we are, I'll just go ahead and post whatever is the next tier up on our giveaway on our socials. But yeah, that's what we're giving away so far and on the line here. And I think we're about 45 away is some Kyle Seager stuff. So if you're a big Kyle Seager fan, again, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and you have a chance to win all that. Make sure you guys check out the terms and conditions also in the description down below.
So we've talked about the big three in the Mariners rotation. Now let's talk about Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, who coming off of really nice first seasons at the major league level. Wu, of course, started to tire out towards the back end of the year. Miller was pretty consistent. Obviously, got off to an insane start, but then kind of evened out and was just fine. Had some pretty good starts, had some not so great starts. He's now added a splitter like Logan Gilbert did last offseason. We'll see, like we talked about with Gilbert last year when we were doing, I remember being in the same chair last year doing the same exact show, talking about, it's great that Gilbert has a splitter in theory, but until we see it, that pitch doesn't really exist, right? So same thing applies to Miller. Really worked out for Gilbert. Doesn't mean that's going to be the same case for Miller, but what are your expectations for him? And then we'll get into Wu.
Yeah, Miller last year, very similar rookie or debut year. Technically, it was a rookie year to Logan Gilbert in his rookie year. Just living on the fastball value, and that pitch really played very well. And just seeing just enough of his off-speed stuff, just flashing it just enough that if he has one of those other pitches, he has a chance to go 6-7 innings, give up 2 runs or less, like just on having the fastball and one secondary pitch alone. Now last year for Miller, the secondary pitch he tried to use more was the slider, and again we did see a flash as an above average pitch, but it just wasn't consistent enough. This year, like you said, he's introducing the splitter, and as we say every time a Mariner comes into camp with a new pitch, until we see it like in action, there's really not a ton of reason to be excited about it. We know that Miller posted a ton of videos of the splitter, this winter, but keep in mind is that, you only have to post the ones you want to, right? Like you don't have to post any of this, the cement mixers that you.
Yeah, there's that. And it also, it's going to look different against live hitting.
Sure. Right. So the splitter would be a very nice pitch to add for Miller, especially if he tunnels it well with the fastball. But it's for now, it's a work in progress pitch, and it's not something that we can kind of factor in until we see it. You also remember last year, Matt Brash wanted to throw a cutter. Didn't really take, now did it. So, sure. Now again, the Mariners did get Kirby and Gilbert to both add the splitter last year. And that was their decision. But they both were able to throw it, and it worked, and it was fine. But again, Brash tried to learn a cutter last year, didn't throw it. So we'll see what Miller's split looks like. We won't see it because God forbid the Mariners broadcast any of the games on the network they own, but whatever. Sure. So we won't get to see Miller, or maybe we will. Maybe he's pitching on Friday. But I'd like to see the splitter before I count on it. If it's a good pitch, like a legitimate major league splitter, then I think Miller could take a pretty big jump because it's a pitch that works really well with his fastball. If it's just kind of what it was last year, throws a ton of strikes, mostly fastballs, sliders, a little bit hit or miss, then he's probably a 2.5, 3-win guy. But there's really no question that he should be fine. There should be no restrictions on his innings cap this year. He went 150 last year. He should be good to go 180 or so this year. Like he's a good pitcher, and there's certainly more to go get there. If he either refines the slider or the splitter is a legitimate third pitch, he could make a pretty significant jump this year. So Miller's definitely fun guy to watch. Probably less upside than Brian Wu, but obviously the ceiling is higher, and he's a guy that you're going to trust a little bit more than Wu at this stage of their career.
So Wu's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Was a big topic of discussion this offseason, just like Miller, with trade talks. The Mariners decided not to trade either of these guys. It doesn't seem like they're going to be doing so anytime soon, by all accounts. But again, Wu is very interesting because still not that far removed from Tommy John surgery. And we saw him tire out, like I mentioned earlier, towards the end of the season. Had some really nice starts, but also had some big blowups as well. You think about the first game against the Rangers, which was a really difficult situation for him to be put in for his first career start. That Reds game as well. But the big thing for me, the big question here with Brian Wu is how is he going to get lefties out?
Yeah, that question also applies to Bryce Miller also. Miller, kind of the hidden knock on Miller that nobody really talked about is that he also really struggled against lefties. And, that's not uncommon for two young pitchers to come up and kind of struggle with opposite-handed hitters. So, but for Wu, it was just a little bit even more stark, the difference. Last year against right-handed hitters, Wu held them to a 179, 226, 268 slash line. Lefties, however, touched him up to 283, 389, 540. So, against right-handed pitchers, basically right-handed hitters, every hitter was double Achilles tear, Tommy La Stella. Versus left-handed hitters, every left-handed hitter was basically Corey Seager. So you can find a happy medium there against lefties. Again, the sky's the limit. Now, for Wu, it's interesting because we haven't heard really anything about Wu's offseason. Miller was posting the new splitter, and as far as we know, Wu hasn't added any new pitches or anything like that. And I don't think he necessarily needs to. The two fastballs, and he does have a 2-seamer and a 4-seamer, they're both really good pitches. He controls them very well. He has good command with those as well. It's a very smooth delivery. It's very little effort in it. Like he can dot it at the top of the zone. He can dot it at the knees. Like it's really good. Both of them, good fastballs.
And a good 2-seamer can be a legitimate weapon against lefties too.
Yes. Typically you need something that runs in on them though, to have the 2-seamer play. And we saw Wu kind of mess around with the cutter and a slider last year, threw a changeup once in a while. But for me, it feels like how big of a jump Wu can make obviously comes down to health, which is true of just about any player, but Wu, does have the UCL injury, and he did set a career high in innings pitch last year. So it is worth mentioning with Wu at least. It's going to come down to health and which secondary takes the biggest leap and how big of a leap is it? Because if Wu just has 4-seam, 2-seam and an average slider, consistently average slider, with his control, command, his delivery, and all that stuff, he's going to be a 3-win pitcher this year, even if he only throws 150 innings. So, again, I think Wu has higher upside. I think the fastball is better than Miller. It's just a matter of when/if the secondary takes, the leap forward. And again, last year we did see Wu throw some good cutters and some legitimately good sliders. So it's not like he's got nothing like he has no starting point with those pitches. It's just about finding consistency. Can that be a consistent 55 grade pitch instead of throwing, 5 or 6 40 sliders and then 160 slider?
Right.
Like, can you find some consistency with that pitch? And I think it's the cutter or the slider. I don't think the changeup is the pitch that's going to explode. Although the changeup isn't awful. It's useful. Like it might be maybe it's the changeup. Maybe it's a new grip on the changeup, and that's the pitch that he uses to get lefties out. So it's a big question. I don't doubt that Wu can find the answer to it. It's just until we see it, it has to remain the biggest question about Brian Wu, because I actually feel pretty comfortable about where his health is heading into this year.
Yeah, it's hard to not feel anything but great about this 1 through 5 for the Mariners rotation. But beyond those guys, if other starters have to make an appearance or two over the course of the season, there's some concern. There's some concerns, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But first, a reminder: this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. With football officially in the books and some time before baseball gets underway, why don't you try your hand at betting on some hoops? Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKDON. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen as we preview the Mariners 2024 starting rotation. We've talked about their 1 through 5, and hopefully, fingers crossed, all things go well. It is only those 5 guys who make starts for the Mariners in 2024.
Sure. Be the first team since the 2002 Mariners to only use 5 starters the entire year. That seems realistic.
But as we all know, yeah, like you just said, that's not a very realistic thing here. So odds are there's at least going to be a 6th guy that makes starts for the Mariners and potentially more. So
probably more.
Emerson Hancock, I think the list starts with him. You guys know how you guys know how we feel about Emerson Hancock if you watched our prospect rankings a week ago. And then after that, Jimmy Joyce
somehow gets scarier.
Question mark? Yeah. Jimmy Joyce, Jerry DePoto's mentioned Tyson Miller and Reed Van Scooter, maybe Jonathan Diaz.
Yeah. Has some starting experience. Jackson Coar has some starting experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty confident Hancock's going to get the first go at this. Now, the Mariners have raved pretty early on about Hancock this spring, but they won't get into specifics, which is a little sketchy. Like, oh yeah, he's looked really good. Like, oh, is the velocity up? Is the change up back? Is the slider back? And you're just like, he looks good. Like,
he looks good.
Like, can you give us some details here? Did he add a pitch? Is the slider more consistent? Is he going to throw the change up more? Because, I mean, if he just looks like he did last year, it's not good. Like that's back. That is like at best a number 6 starter, and that's if everything goes well for him. So Hancock's a guy at 91 to 92, like what he was last year. He can't even really get to his best pitch effectively, which is his changeup. Like, he didn't throw his changeup last year in the big leagues. I think he threw it like 15 times. That's too good of a pitch to not throw. But if your fastball is 91 to 92 and your changeup is, just kind of floating out there, you can't make them honor the fastball. They're going to sit on the changeup. So for me, I think Hancock's velocity is something I want to watch. Now, unfortunately, he's pitching on Saturday, which is not televised.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
God forbid we watch Emerson Hancock. No, we have to watch Graham
and also,
Bessinger or whatever interview Charles Barkley. Well, good programming route. But
also, even if he was pitching on TV, so many of these ballparks don't even have StatCast data or radars or anything like that. So would we even know?
We'd just be relying on reports from people at the ballpark, which spotty at best. Reporters at the ballpark. So, he's a huge question mark until he isn't. I would love to be wrong, because if we are, the Mariners have a legitimate, number 6 starter. Maybe they're willing to move Miller or Wu at the deadline, or maybe Hancock has more value at the deadline and you can move him. So, if he's 80% of the pitcher he was when the Mariners drafted him, just stuff wise, he's totally legit number 4. Like he absolutely is. And that's just at 80%. If he gets back to what he was at Georgia somehow, finds that magic elixir,
Right.
he's a, number 3 or higher. So
Right.
there's still a little bit of hope, but I'm kind of running out of
It's more
of
like
hype
hope.
for a guy.
Yeah.
He's right-handed Marco Gonzalez at this stage. And I'm not talking good like 3 straight 3-win season Marco Gonzalez. I'm talking like 2022 Marco, where it's just kind of like,
Yeah. It's
he
just
can get some outs, but like he's just as likely to give 6 runs as he is to give up 2.
Well, it's
Which
just he has so much wear and tear on him now.
the shoulder is a big
and it's
problem.
he's had another shoulder injury which cut his season short this past year. And look, obviously he was probably dealing with that when he got called up to the bigs, and maybe that did have some sort of impact on his stuff and the way his stuff looked, because when he was up, even though he had a decent-ish start against the Padres, the stuff overall looked fringe MLB quality.
Mm-hmm. It just, by the way, that's your number 6 starter, and he has major shoulder issues. That's not good. Like, this is the guy you're going to go to if you have to put
Yeah.
George Kirby on the 15-day IL. You're going to go to Emerson Hancock, who also has shoulder issues.
Yeah, this I would feel a lot better about the depth if they just had and this sounds so weird to say, but if they just had a Tommy Malone type, or just Tommy Malone. I don't know if he's signed anywhere.
Just go get Michael Lorenzen. Michael Lorenzen would help this team more than Matt Chapman, in fact.
You've
But
been whispering a lot on this episode. Locked on ASMR.
that's right, baby.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, I think Voth is another guy that's going to get thrown into this mix. He has starting and reliever experience. You mentioned Trent Thornton. I'm pretty sure he
I
hasn't
did not
started.
actually, but yeah.
Well, he hasn't started, I think, since 2019 with any regularity, but he is a multi-inning reliever. We saw the Mariners kind of do this last year when they put Wu down for 3 weeks or so. Like they just kind of did Luke Weaver for 3 or 4, and then they go to the bullpen.
Right.
I think they would just try to do that with somebody like Thornton or somebody like Voth.
Joey Crable.
Crable have starting experience?
No, but he's gone multi-innings before.
Crable looked pretty good today, by the way.
Yeah. I think he could throw like
him.
2. Like if you just want to go opener and then bullpen day, basically.
Right,
like,
but you don't want to do that like every 5th day.
No.
So especially early in the year. So
and we saw how much that had an impact on the bullpen down the stretch, especially without Paul Sewald.
It's a lot of innings to cover, and that's if everybody else in your rotation goes 6 or 7, which is not a guarantee. So
right.
I think, this is why I think Jackson Kowar, if he doesn't make the team, he'll go down to Tacoma. And despite the Mariners seeing him as a reliever, they'll ask him to start. They'll stick him in the Rainiers rotation. Same with Jonathan Diaz. He's clearly a reliever, but they'll stick him in that rotation. And that's kind of what you're looking at after Hancock. Like they'll probably go Voth. It would be their next guy up if he makes the team. And then after that, it's Kowar.
And Voth has to make the team.
Pretty much.
Yeah, unless he clears waivers after, because he's out of options.
And maybe he would, but I feel like Voth's probably going to make this opening day bullpen anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like they could really use like a Marco Gonzalez type, like Tommy Malone.
Did Eric Lauer sign anywhere yet?
I don't think so, but I think he might also be dealing with a shoulder issue himself. But like they could really use like a Brad Keller.
That idea. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like just somebody like that, just a number 5 starter who can get outs. So we'll see. The depth is not where it wants to be, but the 1 through 5 is as good as it gets. So like if you're grading this Mariners rotation, don't you kind of have to give it an A?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the concerns about the depth. I have them too, but like 1 through 5 is so good.
Yeah, I think it's the best rotation in baseball, especially because Ohtani is not going to be pitching for the Dodgers this year.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a year from now, maybe it's the Dodgers, but also in a year from now, we could be thinking a lot differently about Brian Wu or Bryce Miller.
Yeah.
So
or Logan Gilbert or George Kirby.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too, man. Like Logan Gilbert hasn't had a 4-win season yet.
Nope.
Luis Castillo didn't have a 4-win season this past year,
which is weird. Like I get it. He's kind of hit or miss towards the end there, but like
he
was really good.
He was really good. I mean, he was what, third or fourth in Cy Young voting.
Fourth, I think. Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for our show. Again, we're going to do the relievers tomorrow, but we're about to record that. It's actually a triple recording day for us today on Monday. So look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dane Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.